It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul Davis. Great to have you in studio today. We've got Cottonwood Police Chief Jody Fanning and Commander Jody McCooch in studio. Thanks for joining me. We're going to talk a little bit about police force, I guess, and our responsibility as citizens when you arrive, and then your responsibilities when you arrive to a 911 call today. And just kind of talk about that. We've had quite a few shootings. Some fatal shootings in New York, also in Ferguson, Missouri. There was the shooting there with a police officer. That one led to a riot up there. We had 2 New York officers recently lured to an area and then assassinated. 2 more were shot, I believe, just last week, kind of lured the same way. We've had a couple of Yavapai County Sheriff's Office officer-involved shootings where the suspects were killed. And then Flagstaff Police Officer Tyler Stewart just a week and a half ago was killed in Flagstaff. The story kind of read as a domestic violence call, but it was no longer a domestic violence call. Where the domestic violence had happened had separated, and the suspect, the Prescott resident, had moved to a different area and had actually called police and said, "Go ahead and come down and talk to me." And once he said, "I'm going to pat you down," the suspect pulled out a gun and shot Officer Stewart multiple times, killing him. This seems to be happening a lot lately. And I hear the word, it's a race issue, and I feel like maybe part of this is also a resisting arrest issue. And before the show we were talking about how I remember when I was 16 years old, got my driver's license, I got that first speeding ticket because I was going fast. I would get out of my vehicle and usually greet the officer halfway between my car and the squad car and shake hands, and then we'd do the license registration and things like that. And then, I don't know, 5, 6 years later, I went to do the same thing because I had a headlight out, and the officer looked at me and said, "Sir, get back in your vehicle." And I kept walking towards him, and then he was like, "Sir, you need to get back in your vehicle." And I was like, okay, this is pretty serious. Things have changed.
Things have changed a lot, Paul. Yes, they have. The old days of that we could meet and greet with you at the back of the car are unfortunately gone by in the past. Today we understand that by keeping people in the car on our traffic stops, it controls their actions and their movements, which gives us a little bit more time to evaluate situations. If they do have a weapon, if they are going to attack, it gives us more time to retreat. We're not saying that everybody that we pull over, because it is a very small number of people that want to harm us, but there are those people that want to harm us, and we want to give our officers every chance they can to escape the attack and protect themselves. And when people are out of the car and stuff in those events, that's what happens. They have too much freedom to move and to attack, and we've had to change our approach to many things. And it's an unfortunate side effect of today's society.
I see these protests or riots or looting, whatever you want to call them, and it's the race seems to come up, the race issue. But I go back and I look at the videos of these incidents that took place, and what I see is a suspect who's being questioned by police, and then he's putting his hands on police officers or pulling away from the police officer. At what point in time am I not doing what I'm supposed to? What should I be doing, first of all? And then when am I going to be in trouble when I start? What is resisting arrest anyways right now?
Well, Paul, for us, when you're lawfully detained, then we have the right to control your movement. So if we're asking you to do something and you don't comply, then we might take your action as a threat, and then we're going to react to that to try to control you to prevent your movement. Just as you had talked about Officer Stewart's incident, that was an issue of control. If the suspect would have done exactly what was told, it's very likely that it would have been a different outcome. So in those situations where we contact people, we definitely want to control their movement. We definitely want them to comply with our requests, and just makes things go a lot easier. I
feel like a lot of these people who have been shot and killed by police officers recently, had they just done what they were supposed to do, would they be gone today, dead?
I absolutely believe they would not. I believe all 3 of them, the gentleman in Phoenix, the gentleman in Ferguson, and the gentleman in New York, would all 3 be on TV today talking about their events had they just said, okay. The gentleman in Phoenix, he fled and then fought. The gentleman in Ferguson, he fought and assaulted and attacked. And the gentleman in New York all attacked, fought. So yeah, it's bottom line. It comes down to if a police officer says don't do something, then don't do it. Yes, you have a right to oppose a police officer's decisions, but the opposition is in court, not on the street. That's not where we oppose a police officer's actions. You oppose it in court, in front of a judge and a jury, and that's the place to do it, not on the street.
Have things changed with this in terms of resisting arrest? Do you see more of that today than you did? How long have you been, Officer McCooch, Commander McCooch? How long have you been an officer now?
For 17 years.
Okay. What kind of things have you seen change in those 17 years?
Well, there's definitely a degradation of respect for any requests, and I think some of it is the sensationalization of the media, of these different incidences where people don't listen, and they, people have a right to speak out against the police, and that's fine. But when the situation is is going on, it'd be best to follow the direction and follow those orders and stick with it.
Chief, what have you seen?
I've seen it a lot, a lot of change. I've been a police officer for 28 years now, and originally when I started, whatever we said is what happened, and it has slowly changed. I'll go back to the O.J. Simpson pursuit that was nationally televised, and there was actually people on the side of the road cheering O.J. on for refusing and fleeing from the police. That's a mentality that we're now getting, is the people think it's good. The media shows it on TV. It's a big thing to challenge the police. You get more airtime if you challenge the police than you do if you just follow commands and do what you're supposed to. And unfortunately, some of these people think, oh, I want to get my 15 minutes of fame. I'm going to challenge the police and see what happens. And we're seeing more of it.
At what time is lethal force brought into play?
At any time that the police officer fears for his life and safety, or the life and safety of a third person.
And that's going to vary from officer to officer.
Pretty much. Yes, in my opinion it will, but yeah, a 6'6" officer probably will not fear a 4'5" person. A 4'5" officer will fear a 6'5" person. Mm-hmm. Yes, it does vary in that aspect.
You mentioned that there's a distance too that you guys have to keep track of.
Right. Within 21 feet is a action-reaction time. So if you were armed with a knife and you were in that 21-foot range, you could potentially charge me and assault me before I would be able to draw my weapon and return fire, or get out of the way of that. So it certainly poses a threat when the proximity is an issue. There's definitely a totality of circumstances on every incident that makes it different.
When I hear these come up, I think to myself that almost everybody should be put in the situation where your life is being threatened. And what will you do to stay alive? Is there a way to possibly get that done?
Well, we do. We have two programs. We have our Milo system, which is basically a computer program that we work through, and then we have Simunitions, where we actually use paint pellets and train our police officers. Police officers against police officers, and then we actually use high school drama students, and they will come out and role play and attack us, and we train ourselves. So yeah, we do it constantly. I've never had any citizens ask me to do it, but I'm certain if there was a group that wanted to go through it, we could set it up to where they could see what it is like to have somebody attack and what are you going to do. Recently, there was a gentleman in Phoenix that went through it and has a whole new outlook on what we face and how much time we have to react, and our officers.
What runs through your head when you're just doing a regular old traffic stop? Each time, what is that goes through your head? I mean, let me put it this way: when you respond to something, do you think this is going to be no big deal, just a regular old call, or are you guys trained that every time you go, that this could be a life and death situation for not just yourself, but also those involved?
Let's put it this way. When we go to dinner, we evaluate the restaurant and who's in the restaurant, where is the attack going to come from, and how can I best defend myself while I'm eating dinner. So in that aspect, yes, every call we evaluate en route. Where is this attack going to come from? Who's going to attack me, and how am I going to defend myself? I mean, that comes from a barking dog call all the way up to the domestic violence armed robbery call. We're constantly role-playing and evaluating every event, including where we sit to eat dinner. I mean, obviously, it's becoming even heightened after the mass shootings in Washington and in Las Vegas. We now pay attention even closer where we're sitting just to eat.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cottonwood Police Chief Jody Fanning and Commander Jody McCooch in studio today. This is Countywide. I'm Paul David. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. You got plans?
You bet. $50 million Americans struggle with hunger, but we can do something about it.
Excuse me. What's going on?
Dinner. Please join me in helping put food on their tables. Together, we can feed America.
You guys keep going. I'm gonna get the plate.
Wait! Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/hunger.
I'm a teacher. Let me tell you what I make. I make learning a privilege, not a chore, and frustration a tool, not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy and giving up impossible. I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought and unconventional methods common. I'm a teacher. I make more.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers to help us better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
Welcome back to Countywide. Cottonwood Police Chief Jody Fanning and Commander Jody McCooch in studio today. We're talking kind of police force and just basic respect amongst all of us to each other. And that's kind of where I want to go next is public trust in police. I mean, you see it in the media and you see the riots and how officers are treated these days. I feel like all those people, though, if they needed to, they'd dial 911 and pray that you get there as fast as you can.
Oh, absolutely. I have no doubt that everybody will dial 911 just as fast as they possibly can if they need us, but then they will, as soon as we leave, some of them will turn around and blog about how rude we were because we didn't do something for them. Overall, I think public trust, I'm very happy and proud of the public trust that I believe that the Cottonwood Police Department has in Cottonwood and most of the Verde Valley agencies. I believe it's very high. But there is those factions out there that are constantly trying to destroy the images of the law enforcement, and I don't know why they want to do that.
That was going to be my next question.
I don't know why they would want to destroy it, other than they don't like themselves. Is my best guess, and is that they don't have respect for themselves, and so they don't want anybody else to have any respect for anything either, or they feel they've been wronged. You know, in my 28-year career, I've arrested a lot of people, and I've always tried to treat them with respect. Some of them we were adversarial, but it is what it is. If you did what you were charged with, then you're going to have to live with the consequences. And some people don't want to do that.
Do you have any ideas on how to get it back?
I think this is a good step right here. Talking about it and understanding that we have a job to do, that we're enforcing the law, and we do that with the spirit of law. And we do treat people with respect and dignity. And although sometimes people are at their worst, they don't realize what's going on, and it makes it difficult. We deal with several emergencies in a daytime or throughout a shift where someone's incident might be their first. So it's very emotional for them and difficult.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I wanted to remind everybody is, sometimes you'll get a police officer that arrives at your scene, at your house for your car being broke into, and he's less than happy, and he's a little bit sidetracked. But I'd remind everybody that you have no idea what that police officer just left. For instance, this past weekend, we had the death of a 2-week-old baby. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you're a police officer and you have to look at a dead 2-week-old baby and then go listen to somebody complain about us not patrolling their streets and somebody broke into their car, the broke into car is probably not the highest priority on your list. The police officer's trying to categorize that dead baby that he had to just look at and your discomfort because we're not patrolling enough on your streets.
What, are you saying you're human?
I would like for people to remember that we are human.
Sure.
That we do grieve over it, although we may not do it in public view. It does affect us, and we're trying.
How could it not?
But you got to understand that not everything is, and we understand it is the most important thing in your life right now, and we're trying to do the best we can. But we are not robots, and we cannot just shut everything else out and say, and deal with your issue and forget everything else that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. I think I make a lousy police officer. We had the recent incident where there was 2 officers were greeted by a guy with a samurai sword, and they had great restraint. They did not wind up shooting this individual. They shot him with a taser, put him down, but I think if I had shown up at that door, I probably would have pulled the trigger right away. Said, well, he's got a sword and he's coming at me with it, so that takes care of that. How do you judge that, to be able to hold back from something like that, being threatened with, of all things, this time a sword?
Well, you got to take the totality of the circumstances into play there, the distance and what's going on. In that particular incident, the officers, he made an incident about, or question what was going on his property. So they said that they were police officers and they were there for a noise complaint. One of them shined a flashlight on himself to try to identify so that the gentleman could see who he was, and he actually, in fact, was a police officer. And they started giving verbal commands. And of course, there was lethal force that was presented to protect the officers. Mm-hmm. And being that there were 2 of them, one was able to go to a less lethal option, which was to deploy the taser.
Okay.
But we train constantly in regards to that. And I'm very proud of the Cottonwood police officers. They are very professional, and they are always looking for the option of not having to use lethal force. And they do everything they can to avoid lethal force. Unfortunately, sometimes people will push the issue where we have no option left. And these officers did everything they could, and those options all paid off, and they were able to restrain him without taking that next step. They're ready to do it, but none of them want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have to take another break. Okay. We're talking just respect among all of us, I guess, between police and the public and public to the police. Countywide will be back in just a minute. We'll take a quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Stick around.
I witnessed him have 2 heart attacks in ICU. He went through seizures.
We'd much rather have Aaron like this than dead. A lot of parents don't have that luxury.
He can't talk. He can't walk. This is a condition Aaron will live with for the rest of his life because he abused prescription pills.
Mind your meds. Learn more from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a couple minutes left in the program. Cottonwood Police Chief Jody Fanning in studio today, along with Commander Jody McCooch. Tomorrow, Friday, is LEAD, Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. This is the first year I heard of this. Detective Sergeant Todd Moore sent us something over last week, and Kyle wrote it up. But Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
Yes,
up tomorrow.
Yeah, it is. It is the first annual. It was brought on by the FBI's National Academy Association and a group called COPS, which is concerns of police survivors, which are the family members of police officers who've died in the line of duty. And what they're basically trying to do is just to show appreciation to the law enforcement community as a whole and say that we do support you. And we understand that you're not perfect, that you are human, that you do make mistakes, but as a whole, we support law enforcement. And so there's many things that are going on. One of the things is some of the things to do is to change your social media picture to the thin blue line or the I support Americans law enforcement shield, turn on a blue porch light, walk up to a police officer and just say, thank you. Mm-hmm. You have no idea how powerful that is. I was out on patrol the day before Christmas. I actually had a lady stop in the middle of the street while I'm patrolling behind her, and at that time I didn't know what she was going to do. So I get out of my car and she says, I've been looking for a police officer all day and I just want to say thank you.
Oh wow, that's really awesome.
And I was like, wow. Well, thank you, ma'am. And it was very touching, and it's something I'll remember for a long time. And just things like that, because we don't do it for the money. We don't do it for a lot of things, but just a once in a while thank you is not a bad thing. So on January 9th, that's the idea, is to say thank you to your law enforcement officers wherever they're at in whatever way you can.
All about blue, too.
All about blue.
I'm a day early, but whatever, that's okay.
Yes, and it's the blue. It's we know that the sheriff's office wears tan and the DPS wears tan. The idea is the blue is not. It's not saying that we don't support law enforcement, sheriffs, and highway patrol. But most police officers are blue, so that's where the blue comes from.
Pretty common color.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty common color for law enforcement throughout the years. All right. Well, we kind of scraped the surface, right? A little bit today.
Yes.
I felt like we needed to talk about it. There's been so much in the media about between officers being killed or officers killing suspects that I felt like we needed to talk a little bit about it to kind of get your point of view and how things work. So, Chief Fanning, very good to see you. Commander McCooch, very good to see you as well.
Good to see you.
That's today's Countywide. I'm Paul David. We'll talk to you again next time.